pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Submit, please, correct. Thank you. Okay, this meeting has been called in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, and that an announcement of the same had been mailed to the local newspapers and to the clerk of the Borough of Belmar, and that the minutes of this meeting will be available after the board approval at a subsequent meeting.
Commissioner Lynch?
Here.
Commissioner Orchard?
Here.
Commissioner Sharrock?
Here.
Commissioner Ramey?
Here.
Commissioner Casserly?
Here.
Commissioner McCracken?
Here.
Commissioner Massano?
Here.
You have a quorum. We'll vote.
Okay, yeah, that's what we're up for, what we're now with the workshop budget presentation by Tom.
Yes.
So here,
Okay, good evening, everybody. So we're coming up to the start of our new fiscal year, so we're at September 30th fiscal year end, so our budget will start for the new year October 1st of 2023 and run through September 30th of 2024. So we will introduce the budget tonight. Tonight's, like I said, just an introduction, at which point we will, after the introduction is passed, we'll send the budget down to the Department of Community Affairs for their review, and they have 45 days to return it to us, at which point I don't anticipate that they'll have any suggested changes because it is a balanced budget, actually has a surplus, so I expect that they'll return the budget, allowing us to adopt it at our October meeting, subject to obviously a public hearing before we adopt it, but I don't see any issues with that. So I'm just gonna, you've got all copies of the, 40 some odd pages of the budget, but I do put an Excel spreadsheet together that essentially gives you the breakdown of the budget. So if you have that, that's what I'm gonna work off of. You'll see on the budget worksheet, I have 3 columns. The first.
Is that in the packet?
It's the
Right,
first
that
one.
one.
It's your
Okay,
first one.
great.
Yeah, right on top.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So, so this basically has 3 columns. The first column is the actual results from our audit that you had passed at the last meeting. Those were the actual results for 9/30/22. The budget that we have currently that we're running through 9/30/23 is in column 2, and then the last column is the proposed budget for 9/30/2024. So you have basically 3 years of historical data there that you can take a look at. So let's talk about the last column there, which is the 9/30/2024, and I'll just touch on some of the highlights. The first thing I wanted to touch on was dwelling rent. You'll see that our dwelling rent is increasing about $24,000 from the prior year. And again, dwelling rent is based on residents' income here. They pay 30% of their income toward rent. So if our dwelling rents are going up, that means tenants' income is going up, and certainly that obviously would be the case in a building like this because Social Security increase was like almost 9% last year. So you expect that as a senior receives a 9% increase in Social Security, 30% of that is going to come over to the Housing Authority in the way.
I'm sorry, they said they can't hear back here.
Can't hear me?
Perhaps you could address people by standing up, that might have a better effect,
Sure.
Or stand up, whatever.
No, I'll stand.
because it's impossible to hear back here.
Okay. I can stand. Okay. I'm usually pretty loud, so. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Just speak louder.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Am I loud enough now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we were talking about dwelling rent in the sense of tenants' rents are going up this year, not because obviously because of the increase that residents have received from Social Security, which was almost 9% this year. So as a result, the Housing Authority will receive 30% of that increase in the rents that come through. So our rents are going to go up about $24,000 in terms of the amounts that we receive.
For the new year, that is.
That is for the fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts October 1st, 2023 and runs through September 30th, 2024. So as a tenant comes in and gets recertified, their rents are going to be based on what they received in the current year, which is, again, a 9%, they got an 8.9% increase starting January 1st of 2023. So we'll start to see that increase as we recertify people in the current year.
He's
Oh,
just
okay.
talking about the rent that we are anticipating on taking in our budget. He's not saying that your rents are going up. He's just talking about our budget, the revenue that we anticipate
Oh, I
taking
see,
in.
I see,
Yeah.
okay.
That's all he's talking about.
Okay, I
Yeah, I kind of figured you were.
misunderstood, thanks,
Yep.
Amy.
Okay, as far as the HUD operating subsidy this year, that's going to go up about from 189 to 220, so we're going to get about a $31,000 increase from the federal government, and that's because our subsidies based on our costs that we put out for utilities, and utility costs are going up, so as a result, our operating subsidy is going to increase by $31,000. So overall, our revenues are up about 13% because of those two items. As far as our expenses are concerned, our expenses are going up 10% this year. The biggest increase is going to be in utility costs. Gas costs, obviously everybody knows, have increased drastically in the last year. Our gas costs are probably going to increase close to 40% over the prior year. Overall, utilities are going to be up 24%. Now that's the bad news. The good news is when utility costs go up, we get more money from the federal government because they subsidize us dollar for dollar for the utility costs that we spend. So, we'll end up getting that money back in subsidy. That's why our subsidy is going up so much. As far as other costs, most costs are just, inflation is higher. Inflation is probably, at this point, probably close to 5.5%. So we're increasing things like office costs, maintenance costs, contracts, things like that, insurance, are all going up about 5 to 5.5%. So, and the other big increase we had were in employee benefit costs. We do have one employee that does receive health benefits from us, and the state increased health benefits this year 20% with the increase in medical costs. So taking all those things into consideration, overall our expenditures are going up 10%. So overall our budget, last year we had a surplus budget of $29,800. This year, because the revenues went up more than the expenses went up, we're looking at about a $43,490 increase in our surplus. We are using one big item everybody knows about the issue here with the facade. So we are using some of the surplus that we've built up over the years, and that's what it's really there for. We're using $365,000 of our surplus to help and fend off some of these issues that we're having with the facade. So we hope that's going to be enough. We know that's going to at least put a dent in some of the things. Overall, the project probably to fix the whole thing is probably going to be, what, Paul, $2 million?
All told, yeah.
Yeah, so $2 million. But so we're unfortunately, because of the way we get subsidized, we have to do things in the Band-Aid form. We're Band-Aiding them as opposed to trying to fix them all. Hopefully we have a monies into the federal government, some emergency money to help us try to get the money to be able to do the full job. But for this point, we're budgeting $365,000. So our surplus coming into the year was $581,000. With the surplus we're adding, minus that $365,000, we're left with a surplus of about $260,000, which is getting a little bit low. As far as the HUD factor is concerned, HUD looks to make sure that you have at least 20% of your operating expenses in reserve. 20% of our operating expenses are about $90,000, so we still have more than HUD would require. So we still have money should we need to put more money into that facade project or any other project that we have. Basically, that $260,000 is for emergency type items like we're using it for the facade. So.
Tom, one question. On the reserve here, it shows 200,000 as a reserve. Our reserve was 581, and we're going to spend 365. So I think that bottom reserve is not accurate. It should be 220,000.
Oh, that number 581.
$259,490, roughly.
Yeah,
It
no,
should be 220 roughly.
365,
581 plus the 43, 490
6,
is the 624
let's see.
216,
minus 365. 581.
216 is
Oh, that's that,
260?
okay. You're not adding that in.
Yeah.
581, 668 minus 365 is 216.
Plus the 43.
Plus the 4.
Yeah, this must be it, yeah.
260,
Yeah.
158.
I don't know why your number, maybe I
What
said
is
that
it,
to you before I
2-1?
saved it. It should be 260, 158
58.
should be the number.
Okay.
That's the 43,000
260.
plus the 581 minus the 365. That's weird.
That is weird.
The other point I wanted to make is for the brick facade, we've earmarked $365,000 for that project. We've already spent money on it in terms of the scaffolding. That was included in the total.
Right.
So we're on our way in terms of allocating money for the facade. It's roughly $40,000 to put up the scaffolding, and then we pay a monthly rental on the equipment until we get a contractor, at which point they would pick up the cost of the monthly rental.
Can we ask questions, or is this closed?
Not,
Not at
that
this
would be
time.
at the
Okay.
We can't-
public hearing,
We can't, okay.
So when would the public hearing be, next time?
October 3rd, tentatively.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, you can.
So Tom, you talked about the reserves exceeding what HUD requires as a minimum. Is there any chance that the HUD would come back and say, you have more reserves than required, therefore we want you to take those reserves and offset some other operating costs? I mean, I hope that's not the case, but is
Yeah,
that,
well, again-
do we have to be concerned about that, or is that something?
No, I think actually when we, spend the 365,000, we'll be below the threshold that they used.
Okay.
They did a recapture a number of years ago, but ended up turning into a lawsuit, and then they ended up having to return it. So the chances of them doing that are probably slim, but I don't have a crystal ball. So, but I would guess with the 365,000, we're below that threshold. Well, the threshold the last time was 100% of your operating expenses, which in our case is $457,000. So we'd be below that threshold number.
With that expense?
With
Okay.
that expense,
All
right.
right, thank you.
Could I just ask a generic budget question? How do you work in capital improvements into your budget? You said your income comes from the rent and your utilities, and your money comes in from HUD based on utility in fare. So where does the money for capital improvements originate, and how does it grow?
That's from HUD too, the capital
Yeah,
improvement fund.
we have aside from this is the operating budget, but besides the operating budget, we do get a capital fund amount every year from the federal government. So that capital fund budget has its own budget that the staff meets with the residents to go over, and they come up with a 5-year plan on those capital improvements, and then they'll put those in the plan, and those are the things that they'll earmark the money for.
So when is that budget open to the public, or shown, or produced?
We're gonna be setting up a resident meeting shortly to start doing that new 5-year plan. We don't have a date yet.
Yeah, it's usually done after HUD releases the funding, which was just recently done. So once the funding is released, then the process starts where they meet with the residents to go over, because you obviously have to know how much funds you have available in order to go over the capital, to prepare the capital budget. So once that is done, I guess they'll start to put together a meeting together with the residents to go over that.
So do we know how much capital money we got?
140. It won't be in there because you have some debt service.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to look that up for
Yeah,
this year.
I think it's somewhere around 130,000. We have some debt service on that though.
I think it was more like 90.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah,
90
hold
is-
on.
yeah.
I have it right
the
here.
one debt service we have is on the
Boiler.
HVAC system, the boilers and
Well,
that's almost not paid off yet.
right, that will be paid off.
Yeah, 99,927. It was
Oh.
for 23.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
100,000.
100,000.
Okay.
And 25 of it roughly
What year was it?
gets taken out for
This is
the
23's.
the 2 boilers and the hot water heaters. They took a 20-year note on it, or 10 or 20?
20, yeah.
20.
So they're paying it off over 20 years. So
So-
around 25 a year goes.
So how does
to
that
the
number,
bank.
how does that number become that number? Do you apply for this money,
No,
or they
it's
just?
it's
they
a
just
formula.
run-
It's a formula that HUD gives us. They basically come up with, obviously Congress appropriates certain money for that program, and then HUD divvies it up in their budget, and then hands it out to all housing authorities based on the number of units they have.
Okay,
So it's a formula.
I mean, we need a facade and the elevator needs working, so like how did they say it's okay that they should only give us $90,000 when we need all this work?
Yeah, unfortunately, if you have other needs, you have to do what we did in the terms of the facade, which was go after emergency monies that are appropriated as well by HUD. HUD will come out with different, what they call NOFAs, Notice of Funding Availabilities, and you can go in and request emergency funding. But that's not, now that's competitive, so that's not formula-based. So competitive means that you're up against every other housing authority that puts in an application.
That is one crazy system.
Well, it
That's
used to
throughout
be
the United States, not
years
just
ago.
New Jersey.
Nuts. That is just absolutely nuts.
Years ago, that's all it was. It was always competitive. So you put in an application, and you might not have got any funding. So they went to, I guess, a formula to at least give you some money each year, as opposed to you could be subject to zero.
Well, I think that's where all the changes need to be taken care of. HUD is federal housing something,
Housing and urban development.
and urban development. We will be talking to that one.
Good luck.
Yeah.
If the commissioners don't have any other
Thank you.
questions, do I have a motion to move the introduction of the
I'll make
budget?
a move.
I'll second.
Commissioner Lynch? Mary, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, do you approve the introduction of the budget?
Yes.
Commissioner Orchard?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharrod?
Yeah.
Commissioner Casterly?
Yes.
Commissioner Massano?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramey?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
I have a check for you too, I'll just hand it to you. Save the stamp. Shit, what you got the
Yeah,
purchase.
that's fine.
Is there anything else you needed?
Are we good?
I'm good.
Okay. Sounds good, Tom. Thank you very much.
Nice to see everybody.
Enjoy the summer.
Yes, enjoy the rest of the summer, right?
Will you be able to be here?
Okay, now we're looking for
Just send me a reminder.
Yeah, well,
approval for the
Good night,
minutes
everybody.
in
So
July.
long. Thank you for coming.
good night, Tom. Second?
I'll second.
Who was not here? You were the only one not here, right? Okay. Commissioner Lynch, we're approving the minutes from July. Do you approve?
If I was absent, was I
No.
absent?
No, you were here last month.
Okay. Yes, I approve.
Commissioner Orchard?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharrod?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramey?
Yes.
Commissioner Casterly?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken, you'll abstain. Commissioner Massano?
Yes.
Okay, we need to renew and the bills for this, nothing. If there's any questions on them, anybody, have you reviewed them?
I have no questions, a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Lynch, approval of the bills?
Yes.
Commissioner
We
Orchard?
have the money for 'em.
Yes.
Commissioner Sharrod?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramey?
Yes.
Commissioner Casterly?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
Commissioner Massano?
Yes.
Reports from the executive director.
Okay, we had some correspondence this past month. Can you hear me back there?
Yeah.
Good. We got a letter from Chris Smith that the funding has left the committee, and it's included in the House Transportation Appropriations Bill at a funding level of $676,000. It'll have to go before the House and the Senate, assuming it's approved by both, and it will await the President's signature. The amount is specifically targeted to provide improvements to the senior public housing building, including facade repair, modernization of the passenger elevator that is well beyond its lifespan. I guess I recognize that. New wiring and video replacement of and a video camera to bring the elevator up to code. The new code requires a video camera in the elevator. Replacement of a broken hot water heater, which we put the money out and replaced it. The replacement of a broken retaining wall on the west side of the building, that's by the railroad tracks. And replacement of carpet, flooring, and furniture from leaks in the community room. So, if everything goes according to plan, we'll be able to make these improvements.
Wonderful.
Even though now we're drawing out from our existing to pay for it because we don't want to wait, but we may get reimbursed through this bill.
That's great.
That would be wonderful.
We applied, as Amy mentioned, we applied for emergency funding, and the one document they were waiting for, we received today, and that is, or I got it today, it's by certified mail. The insurance company denied our claim to pay for the brick facade wall of building, side of the building, which I knew they were going to anyhow.
I did receive that via email and forwarded it to HUD.
Okay. So now we'll see what HUD, if we get possible money from HUD for emergency repair.
Okay.
So we're working on two fronts. Let's hope one of them comes through.
Yeah.
Within the building, we have one open vacancy. They couldn't get enough carpeting to redo the one unit, which they got now, and the carpeting's put in. It's taking a little longer because I'm going off a wait list that began in 2019.
Okay.
If you remember, we closed application process because we had a long wait list, and now we're going through the wait list according to when they were received. We filled one unit with somebody on the wait list, and we're now working on the second one. It may take a little while longer. I would anticipate after this round that maybe not immediately, but in the next few months, I may recommend that we reopen the application process. Because we'll have gone through the majority of the waiting list.
For the waiting list?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fair.
Awesome.
It's just very awkward to be going through it. I've had several people that have deceased now since they put in applications. And we've had several other people that found HUD housing somewhere else. And looking down the road, the wall's gonna offer a number of units, so we're gonna be competitive in the area with wall affordable housing.
Sounds
Paul,
good.
refresh my memory on that. Do we give preference to Belmar residents?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
I went through that list. I always go through that list first, and then I go into the other list.
Yeah. And also the emergency factor, like if a person's gonna be
Homeless,
Yeah.
or
Whatever.
they have, you
Yeah.
know, substandard housing or whatever that's
Yes,
called.
if they're paying more than 50% of their income towards rent,
Mhm.
that's another one, and another factor. Yes,
Yeah.
so, other than that, I think we're pretty much up to date. Around the building, around the inside, we've been replacing the emergency light fixtures, because they're old, we can't get parts for them. So we have to buy all new units to put them in, to
Okay.
get the emergency lighting working again. Generator's working fine, it turns on immediately if the power goes out,
Great.
so I don't think we'll have that problem again. And hopefully in the fall, we'll be talking about modernizing the elevator and bringing it up to code.
That's good.
That's the end of my report.
Okay, any correspondence?
Other than that,
Other than Congressman Smith.
I'm sorry?
just the congressman's got a letter.
Any old business?
I almost got stuck, but I figured out.
New business? Any reports from the commissioners? Go ahead.
You know, it just relates to the HUD funding formula. You know, it's a national problem that HUD has with funding buildings that are older like this and need extensive repairs, which is why a year ago, we reached out to Congressman Smith's office asking if the congressman would be interested in allocating some discretionary congressional funding to the Housing Authority, and fortunately he has. You know, I received the same letter that you did, Paul, but you know, over the years, HUD has come up with new formulas and programs because they're trying to address the capital improvement issues in many buildings throughout the state and country. And you know, one of the programs that they have is the RAD for PRAC. Now, I know Tom talked about that to us a couple meetings ago, and there was a discussion about whether or not all the residents needed to approve that. I looked into it and spoke to some folks from HUD, and the short answer is they don't,
Can't hear you.
but certainly you want.
They can't hear you back here, Mr. McCracken?
Talking about updating the funding formula for our building. And there was a discussion at a previous meeting that we had to have 100% of the resident buy-in to be able to do that so we can fund capital projects. My understanding from HUD, and, you know, I talked to them personally about this, is we don't, but there is a 30-day waiting period, so it has to be posted. We have to have a series of resident meetings. There's a process that you have to go through, and you know, then we could look at converting to RAD for PRAC. So I still think we should keep that on the table. Won't cost the residents any more out of their monthly income to pay for the formula, but will give us an opportunity to borrow more or receive more in rent so we can offset. Because this facade isn't going to be, I mean, you've done a great job, Paul, with the parking lot and the roof and a bunch of stuff, and you're very conservative in your approach to things. But you know, with an old building like this, when you have a major systems failure, it's a lot of money. And you know, like we talked about, we're going to be potentially repairing these bricks, but how long would that last? And the real fix is $2 million. So
I asked that question early on with the engineers, and what I was told was that we go through this project and put the metal channels, everybody can hear me, the metal channels along the side, and then subsequently put the water-resistant screening above them, that it would be a permanent fix for the building.
okay.
Wow, sounds great.
Let's hope.
Yes, yeah, you know, and if you remember, one of the provisions Tom had said is that if we were gonna go towards RAD, we have to spend down all our
Yeah,
surplus.
that's right. That's one of the
So we-
downsides.
Yeah.
Big negative, yeah,
That's a big negative.
yeah, big negative.
So, you know, I'm hopeful that this money comes through. The step after the channels would probably be to do one side of the building at a time with the range screen. So depending on what we got from HUD and whatever we have available, we might start with the 8th Avenue side, which is the front of the building, and maybe have to do it in 2 or 3 phases. I'd rather do it all at once, but I don't think realistically we're gonna be able to afford it all at once. At that point, we may, you know, we may also look and see if the state association is gonna get together again like they did with the last bond, or last borrow, and borrow as a group again.
That's also a thought.
Yeah.
Don't, why, but why?
Can I just say, so are they gonna begin
Can we again,
working?
we're not into public
At
session
this-
yet, huh?
Well, let me,
The exterior? Oh, I'm so
That's okay.
terribly I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
As soon as we get the okay in terms of the funding, we'll begin.
I see.
So we may have to live with this beautiful deck around the building for a while.
We can have them pumpkins or something.
And you know, at Christmas, it's red and green, the panels, so we'll be right in there.
No, that's a good idea.
They
for
get some
Halloween.
blue and white up there.
Okay,
But what will happen to all this around?
wait a minute.
Nobody's
Okay,
looking at it.
we're gonna, now, we're gonna open it to any remarks from the general public.
Go ahead.
Nobody's looking at it in the city.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Everything that is going around the building. How are they going to improve it, or what do they do?
They have to attach the walls back to the building. This is for safety, so nobody gets, if something fell off the side of the building, it wouldn't hit anyone. This is only temporary.
But how long? How
I'd
long
only be giving you a guess, I really don't know. I'm hopeful we're gonna get the funding. If we do, we'll probably begin in the fall.
No money, no honey.
Yes, we have to put it out for bid, and it's gotta be published in the paper. So it's not, and then we have to get sealed, closed bids, and then look at the bids. As in Washington, nothing moves quickly with HUD.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Since we're using the,
Maria?
let's see, where is it that you had mentioned, what is it that we have, 365, we've got, that we can use, the 365,000. So is that going to start, can we get the bid out now for at least part of the metal channels, so we can address the worst
Not
part
until the
of it?
budget's adopted.
The budget has to be adopted. and
Budget
HUD
has to be adopted first,
Has to say, okay, they, you know, you can spend the money.
so we can't actually have anyone working
We
yet
should have the
until the
specs.
budget is
We
adopted.
probably will have the specs from the engineer, which is part of the bid.
Okay.
We're gonna have to put the specs included in the bid. And this time around, because it's a bigger project, I'm gonna propose we advertise in the Star Ledger, which has a wider, no offense for CoStar, but it's got a much larger circulation, and a lot of the firms that have done this type of repair have done it on buildings in North Jersey. So we'll spend more, but hopefully we'll get more responses from contractors that do this type of work.
And Maria, not that we can't go out to bid, we
Yeah.
can probably more like September-ish,
Okay,
because it'll take time to prepare the bids, go out to bids, we have to publish it for 10 days, take the receipt of bids, and then we have to award within 60 days. So then that would give us that time frame. Once our budget's adopted, we could actually, if all the stars aligned, which they never kind of do, if we could go out to bid, get everything in, and then for October 3rd meeting, if the budget is passed, we can then immediately award at that same meeting if everything was done in time.
thank you for explaining that.
Anita Pecorelli. That 100,000 that was awarded a while back, I thought that went, I thought that went for the scaffolding, whatever that is. It sounded like you took it out of your capital funds. I don't understand.
So the capital funds we get every year from HUD.
Right.
And we have been taking all, like the bill that we're paying tonight, $40,000 for the scaffolding, is taken out of those monies.
Okay.
Or if we had to replace the hot water heater, it's taken out of those capital fund monies.
Right.
We get about the $100,000 every year, and we've been building that up to do portions of this building.
So that $100,000 that was advertised was just your average? I thought that was like an extra $100,000 that we got.
No.
It was higher than people anticipated.
So when
It
will
was a
they
higher
receive
amount
that
this
money?
year.
So it wasn't anything, it was just the norm?
Yes.
Okay, to be clear, the rent is not going up in October?
No, we recalculate the rent once a year. I sit with every resident in January every year to recalculate their rent, which then starts in February, and it's based on their current year's income
Right.
minus prior year's medical expenses. So what Tom was saying is when we did our 22, 23 budget, it was before the Social Security increase of 9% came along. So then when I did the rent recalcs in February this past year, we're seeing a 9% increase in rent money because of the fact that the Social Security went up. So he can now anticipate that increase in this year's budget.
Oh, okay, all right. So, just so I'm clear, October, we think Congress and all this stuff might answer us by October?
Well, they go back into session, I think, towards the end of August. And since it's out of committee, it then has to be scheduled on the floor for the House for a vote. And then if it's approved by the House, then it gets passed over to the Senate. They have to schedule it on a floor
Yes, I
vote.
understand how a bill is passed. I'm just saying, is there a time, there's a time frame? Like, can they sit in the House for weeks, or, so this number is just, this timeline is just basically, whatever they do. There's no specific dates.
No.
So we could end up being December or January, and they still haven't gotten it done?
I think history dictates that generally it's done in the fall. If they can agree on, they've agreed on a budget for temporarily, which is always the big question. Can they concur on a budget, which they did. So now they have to determine if they want to spend the money.
Okay, so October 4th comes, your budget gets passed. Congress, they're not all done yet. We don't have the finalization or anything like that. The bid is already written because we wrote it in September. So do we still go forward
Yes.
October 4th and assign the job and accept the bids and everything? Even though Congress
if the
is
bids are in
still,
line, yes.
assuming Congress has not finalized their
No,
decision.
we've already determined we're gonna spend that money in reserve for the
The
repair.
365.
Right, but that's not gonna cover everything.
Well, it's gonna cover hopefully the channeling on the outside to reattach the brick to the building.
Do we have information that 365,000 would cover this project?
This was the estimate by our engineers, yes.
Okay, thank you.
For just that metal channeling, and then does that include as well the screening, or it doesn't include, it's just the
Screening,
channeling,
yes.
right? So, and from what I understood from Joe Schloter and Chris Smith's offices, that it likely would be more like January that we would see any of the money coming in towards here. So it is a while. It is, you get approved for it, but it is a while before you actually get that release of money for his specific community funding grant.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another year after that to get it,
To actually receive
Yeah.
the funds?
most likely.
Okay, that isn't how I understood it, but I'll check that.
So this is a new program that Congress hasn't had before. It's only been in effect for, I think, this might be the third year. So Congress has to approve the budget, or a budget, which has to include this new program, the discretionary congressional spending. Then you have to submit all sorts of paperwork to show how you're gonna spend the money. There's a whole program, and after that's done, the money, you granted the money after that. So because of Paul's conservative budgeting, and we have the money in our capital improvement fund to do this repairs, it's likely we can get started early if we know that that funding is coming from the feds. It's just a matter of complying with all their requirements to receive it.
Yeah, I'll look at that timeline, I'll ask about that, thank you. Because I think it would, I was told it would be sooner than that.
Yeah, I just
So I'll
spoke
find
to Joe 4 weeks ago about this.
Okay.
So that's what she said. But it's kind of immaterial because we can do the work anyway. As long as we know we've got it, when it comes in isn't super important.
Okay.
To repair the bricks.
So, thinking outside the box, we still have the elevator issue. Is there anything outside the box other than the normal routine that the public or the residents could be, calling people or writing letters, or, because this is insanity in my world. Your building is falling down, your elevator is not working. I believe this woman got stuck just the other day, okay?
Thursday night.
These
I
are
had to
human
walk up.
beings, they deserve the best for everything. They put their time in their life, they put their jobs in, they've worked whatever they've done, they've supported, and we should turn around and support them. We can blame it on HUD, and we can blame it on the federal government, but it's still happening. And my concern is, what are we doing about it? What can the public do? What can anybody do? I think we need to really jump outside the box and have some discussions about this. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
I'm worried about going on the uptake and, because I stay up kind of late and a lot of times I'll shoot down at, 8 o'clock. It's like a morgue in here, but, and, to mail some letters because, I'm like that. Once I write a check or write a birthday card, I put it in the mailbox, which I love in the front.
Yeah.
But now, after the other night, I'm like afraid I'm gonna get stuck.
Did you
What
use the
hap-
phone?
What happened?
Yeah,
Can you
what
tell
did
us what happened?
Yeah.
What
Well,
happened?
I came down with my cousin was visiting, and yada yada, he, left, I said goodbye. It was the second night of the moon, the rare moon, whatever, hunter
Probably
moon,
Wednesday.
whatever it was. Not
Wednesday
hunter
night,
moon.
yeah.
And I wanted to run out and hang out for about 10, 15 minutes. I often do go out at night to, it's beautiful out. And I came back in, and it was fine, and then, I pressed, and it didn't go up. And then I tried it again, and it started to go up, and then it stopped, and I said, okay, don't panic. And I pressed ground again, it rang and it went down. It was only up about probably, I don't know, feet wise or, and then I was afraid.
Yeah, oh
I
yeah.
was totally
So then it
afraid.
came back
and
down, is what you
I
said.
sent a text, but, just said, once I got upstairs, because by the time I got up, it was about 9:15, but.
Well, the elevator came down and then you got off? Or what did you
Yeah,
do?
it came down because I figured if I was kind of bucking it for a minute,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't causing harm or anything, and I came back down and.
You got off.
I kind of stood around, I got off, and I said,
And then you
'cause
walked upstairs?
yeah, I'm still suffering from a
What,
broken ankle,
what floor are you on?
the 6th,
No.
yeah. So
And
I
is there
just,
lights in the stairwells?
there were,
Okay.
yeah,
God, yeah.
thank God, but it was difficult because now I'm even going for a procedure tomorrow. And,
It would be difficult for me to climb 6 flights of stairs.
well, I'm just
It's
scared
okay.
now.
Yeah, now I agree.
Plus if I'm not gonna elaborate, but I don't wanna, if I'm somewhere for more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, say, I could see myself.
Yeah,
yeah. And I didn't have my phone.
And Renee, when you got home, did you?
I want
you
to say a few words, if it was possible, about our elevator. We live on the 6th floor, and we live here in this building 20 years. And our elevator doesn't work properly. It is very dangerous all the time. It is dangerous because it doesn't work properly. Please pay attention and do something with the elevator. Elevator is very bad, and it's really dangerous for all of us to live. We live on the 6th floor. I was coming right now to the meeting, and I couldn't get the elevator. I was waiting and waiting, it didn't come. I went downstairs, but how shall I go upstairs now? Take care, please. It is very dangerous, and that's what I want to say. 20 years.
Is there a button inside the elevator that you can press, if you're stuck
There's a
in there?
phone, you said.
Yeah, there is a, I didn't have to
There's a
get
phone.
to that, thank God, but,
Yeah.
I'm just saying now, I'm a little worried at night now, but that's my fault also. Well, not my
No, it's
fault,
not your
but because of my
fault.
leg,
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
it's
It's not your
just,
fault.
it's frightening and it's
Nobody
hard.
pays attention.
Renee, who
It's
did you
very
reach out to
dangerous.
afterwards?
Wait a minute, I can't hear with other people speaking.
Who did you reach out to afterwards to
I
let
just
know
sent
the
a
problem?
text to the superintendent and said, I hope he understood what I said. I said the elevator seized about 15 minutes ago, as of 15 minutes ago.
Did you get a response back?
Nope.
All right,
Did you know
we'll
about
look
this?
into it.
I'm
We've
just
already
paranoid
had
now.
a consultant we
No, I'm
have
sure.
the plan, what needs to be done.
Yeah, I know that that's in the works.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'll be very happy when I see some dude out there.
But it's
I
not
do.
in the works. It's not in the works.
Excuse me, it is in the works, okay? We got the report from the consultant for the elevator. We're proceeding along first with the brick facade and then the elevator.
Well, the brick facade might take a year.
Well, it may take a year. You know what? Rome wasn't built in a day either.
But you have to do something with the elevator. Talking and talking is not enough. You have to repair elevator in such a way that people could live in this building.
Well, it's,
That's the most important thing. We live on the 6th floor and I'm just like that.
This is the first
My heart
I've heard
is
of it, okay.
breaking when I go downstairs or upstairs.
Hmm?
It's impossible to live like that.
Paul, I mean, if Maria's correct, and maybe I misunderstood, it's not important, but if we get this discretionary congressional funding, and if it does come July 1st, would it be possible, after you substantiate and look into further these reported elevator issues, maybe to allocate some of the money from our reserves,
yeah.
put it toward the elevator first? Now the building's safe because we have the scaffolding around, and then when the congressional funding comes in, do the second
No,
part?
I'm proposing we do the two things at the same time.
Okay.
As far as the elevator upgrade, we have one number that will modernize it to an extent and replace all the circuit bulbs,
Mhm.
which are hard to find anymore. To do that part is phase one. To completely modernize the elevator is about double that amount. So we would spend approximately $90,000 to modernize it, step one.
Mhm.
And then when the money becomes available, complete it, the total modernization. So,
Okay.
we've already done our homework on it, and we're planning to go ahead, but, until the budget's approved, we can't really
Right.
do much at this point.
Would the circuit bulbs be the reason why it's acting funny right now? I mean, that's scary.
No, you know what, you put in the paper, the problem is with JCP&L. They have these power outages and they automatically switch all the power back on and it burns out circuits. The problem with our elevator actually began when we started having these brownouts from JCP&L, and they take absolutely no responsibility for the outages. None. I have it in my own house, where after 43 years, they can't tell me why 4 houses on my block lose power and the rest of the block doesn't lose power. And I've lived in the house 43 years.
But yet our electric bill's going up from actual 2022 from $33,000 to a budget of $48,000.
Yeah, and then probably most of that'll go with their 23 vice presidents
Yep.
that they have as officers of JCP&L.
What about the money from this year's budget? There's no available funds in this year's money? There's
Yeah.
nothing that can get you started or jumpstart anything? All of your funds are closed and locked up until October?
We've spent our funds over the years and done several $100,000 in upgrades. This room, for example, has thermal glass all the way around, so it's not cold in the winter and hot in the summer. That was one upgrade. The parking lot had potholes. We needed to repave the parking lot. That was done. Repaved the parking lot. The roof had to be replaced. We replaced the roof on the building. And now, security lighting, we increased the security lighting around the building to make it a safer building.
Now, these are capital improvements, so am I to understand from the other conversation that there was a meeting with the residents and they decided on how to spend the capital money and they decided to go with the thermal windows and not the elevator?
That was like years and years ago.
Only talking, you don't know.
Years.
So the parking lot, that seems recently. Did the residents decide to go and spend the money on the parking lot and not put the money towards the elevator? Is that what I understand with the capital funds, that there's a meeting with the residents? Is that what they decided?
We had a meeting and we presented what the plan was, and the few people that attended, listen. We don't get a big turnout for resident meetings.
I would go with the elevator before potholding, and I don't even live here. And I'm never gonna live here.
Well, listen, number one, the elevator problem, as I said, has occurred within the past year because of power outages.
I don't believe that's true, but you're
Well, you
entitled
can
to your
believe what you
opinion.
want. We're not
I
gonna
can,
debate this
and I
in a
do.
public meeting. Would you please go on?
But how long
Okay.
shall we talk about the elevator? My husband is 91 years old. We live on the 6th floor. I'm 87. People who live here are very old, and they are always trembling like that when we go into the elevator. You have to do something with it.
If
That's
I
it.
may,
No way out.
please, you're here, we hear you. Please, if it's a concern, continue to present it to us. Keep that open communication as best as possible, even though it's frustrating. It's built upon monetary issues. Paul, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, it's.
We're trying to
You have a
accommodate
heart attack
people to
every
the
time
best of
going
our ability.
downstairs and upstairs. It's not a joke.
No, it is not.
No, I think
This
what
is our
everybody is
life.
saying,
We
we
live here.
understand that, and everyone is working the hardest that they can to accomplish this. And we have had other things that had to be fixed. Paul just explained everything to you. And I understand that this is the next thing that we're working on, but we have to wait for the money to come in. I mean, does everybody understand that? I mean, I wish we had the money to just go ahead and do it, I really do. But we don't have the ability to do that right now, but that is one of our plans.
I think it was at the last meeting that we had asked, and I had asked Amy, as far as getting any kind of other fundraising opportunities and what the cap might be so that it doesn't go against us in any way to fundraise for something like this.
I don't think that there's a cap, but we can get it into our budget as like a donation. That's
Okay.
what I talked to the accountant about.
Okay.
We can do that?
Yes.
Yes.
And can that happen at any time, or does that have to happen before October?
You can do what's called a chapter 159 in your budget if you get donations or a grant in after your budget's adopted. I know in municipal budgeting, you can do a chapter 159, which allows you to add it to that current year budget. So I would just have to check with our accountant if.
Up to what amount? Amy, is there an amount or a
No,
cap on it?
No, not in municipal world, no. But HUD world,
HUD world,
I
that's
don't
what I'm
know
saying.
if there's a difference.
Yeah.
Oh, because they might cut the funds.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's what we
they
have
could
to
do
find
that.
out.
And that's an
That's
important
fine.
information to know what the cap is, if we can find that out.
Before they cut you, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I'm happy to look into options of fundraising, and certainly the Shillelaghs do a great job of fundraising throughout the community.
Okay, if everything's, yes.
I have a couple things. Sharon Mahoney. Can everybody hear me? So I've noticed that this meeting is still not in the CoStar. And I know that you say that you've sent them the list, but it's not being published. So if you want to contact April and find out how she gets her meetings published for the Belmar Mayor and Council meetings, I mean, it's simple as like, you can just go online. I know I've posted stuff in there online, but you can call them and say, can you make sure this is up? Because it's updated as of last Thursday, where they say their next meeting is, tomorrow, right?
We publish our resolution once a year at the beginning of the year, and then all our meeting dates are listed on our website.
I understand that, but the mayor and council in Belmar, they, every week or every 2 weeks, they go to CoStar and make sure that their meetings are updated. So is it too much to ask for someone on the administration here, whether it's the executive director or the admin assistant, to make sure that CoStar has that information every time you're done with this? Okay, the next meeting is X date. Is that a difficult request?
Yeah, you'd have
You
to
can't
pay
rely
every
on
time.
sending them one list a year and then it's gonna show up. You have to stay on top of those with the.
No, but what we do is I just send them the resolution at the beginning of the year. They publish the resolution that lists all our meeting dates. That's what we have to do.
We only
Maria?
publish, if we
Do you
change it,
have
we have
the-
to publish it.
Yes.
Do you know how April
If we
handles it?
change
over
it.
I can find out. I can also talk to Gianna right here. She's from the CoStar.
Yeah.
But I think it's onus is on the commission to make sure that the information gets to them every single month, not just like at the end of the year, because things fall through the cracks. The other question I have is, you know, this came up last year, I haven't been to a meeting in a few months, but it seems like every meeting I've been to, the residents are asking you to speak up. And, you know, it's like, I don't know why it has to be asked every time for you to speak up. You know, I have trouble hearing and I have normal hearing. And there are people here who have, you know, obviously diminished hearing, and they can't hear you. And we've asked before to maybe move down the table a little bit. If you get maybe a microphone you could pass around to whoever's speaking, that might help with a little speaker. Just trying to make some suggestions here. Yeah, I mean, it's just a simple, you know, upgrade or whatever. And then I agree with the whole elevator issue where that seems to be a priority and it's a constant complaint from the residents. Is there any way to plead with HUD to say, look, the facade is one thing, that's the outside of the building, but the residents really need the elevator. So if there's a way for them to, you know, speed up some processes or say, can we get emergency funding to fix this issue? Because from what I'm hearing just right now, and I know this started last year when we had that brownout in August, or whatever happened in August, that huge debacle with people being stuck overnight, that it seems to be an emergent situation that everybody here has a real, like, you know, pain point for. So is there something that can be done about that? Reaching out to whoever, you know, HUD representative you have to address that issue and ask if there's anything they can do to help.
Yeah, they tell you, we fill out an application for emergency funding, that's what they tell you to do.
Okay, and has that been done?
Yes,
Okay, and that was filled out when?
months ago. We
Okay,
just
and-
supplied the last document this week from the insurance company.
Okay,
They
so it
wanted a notice of denial.
So it was just finalized as far as the application goes, just now?
Yeah.
But one thing to understand is when you apply for HUD for emergency funding, it doesn't mean you're gonna get it, because HUD only has the money that they're allocated from Congress. So if they're allocated 20 million and they have requests for 200 million in emergency funding throughout the
Which they
the
probably
company.
do, is, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't give partial, they award certain projects based on whatever criteria they have. So it's frustrating, the system that we're working within with HUD.
But I think the elevator definitely would be a top priority to HUD with 90-year-old people on the 6th floor,
Yeah.
if that was expressed to them.
I would think so too.
I agree.
So let's all call HUD.
Jim, Sandy Caputa. Jim, I thought you said that when once you get approved, and we're talking about the facade, once the money's approved, even before you get it, you can start the work. Did you, or did I not?
I didn't say that. That question would be better answered by Paul.
Okay, because I thought you said something like that, that once I thought I just heard that, maybe I'm wrong. Once the money is approved, even though you don't actually have it yet, the work can start.
No, we're gonna start with the reserve we have to pay for it.
So you use money that you already have.
In our reserve, yes.
Okay.
But we had to put that in the 5-year plan. They have to approve how you're spending that money over 5 years. So we have to submit a 5-year plan. Year 1, we're gonna spend this amount of money for this, that, and the other thing. Year 2, year 3, and they have to sign off on it. They have to approve the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Was the elevator in your 5-year plan?
Our last 5-year plan didn't include it because it was prior to
The
the elevator issue.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what we're getting ready to do again this year.
Right.
They're joking and they're laughing, but this is not a joke.
Okay, is there anyone
No.
else?
They're not laughing at that.
They're not.
No
They're
one's
not.
laughing. Is anyone
No one's
else?
laughing.
I just have
Go ahead,
a
Grace.
question.
Every time going up and down. I
Luda,
hope they-
Luda.
I understand
Luda.
that, but you have to listen
I
to
listen,
also what
listen.
they're saying.
It's every time at the meeting, the same conversation.
Maria?
The same.
Well,
Yes.
So I just had a question, a follow-up question about when there is,
Excuse me,
Luna.
excuse me. Go ahead, Maria.
when there's staff or personnel concerns. Recently, I've had several, and we can talk more offline about this. Several people come up to me with concerns over personnel and the way that they are being treated. For fear of retaliation, they are feeling that they don't want to write that to you. And I know we had talked prior that maybe Amy could take those messages, but then you said no, ultimately it needs to come to you. I'm not sure what to do with that information if people aren't able,
Well, you
feeling
could
comfortable coming forward.
You could transport it, you can transmit it to me, that's fine, but we don't discuss personnel issues.
No, and I don't plan to. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I'm wondering the procedure then. Is there anyone, is there an ombudsman or anyone that would otherwise be a good person to reach out to if someone is worried about
Well,
retaliation?
Ellen's our, I don't wanna throw under the bus, but Ellen's our tenant representative on the board,
Okay.
so. If you got it to Ellen, it would be shared, it would come to the board. We would deal with it in a executive session, but she is your tenant representative.
If they don't write it down in black and white and sign their names and give it to me to give the fault, I am not gonna be involved. There's too much going on and I'm not gonna.
Well, then you would get that, yeah, then it would be hearsay if they didn't write here, absolutely.
And that really is the
That's
issue
what
that
I'm
we're
saying.
having.
And I'm not gonna get involved in that. I'm not gonna be like that. I had enough of it. No.
So maybe, Maria, you could explain that to them, that they have to write it down and sign
Write it
it.
down in black and
And
white
give
and give it to me.
to Ellen, and then
I
we'll-
can
She'll
pass
give it
it
to
on.
me.
Yes. That's the
Okay.
only way. Otherwise, I will not. I will not.
If there's nothing
more.
else, let's call for adjournment.
Are we going into?
I'm sorry, but I wanted to go into executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
honey.
know it's late, but maybe just a 10-minute
Okay,
conversation.
okay, we'll do
Okay.
that.
Okay, so I just need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make the motion to go to executive session.
Second,
I will.
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Thanks for coming, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.